So hello you guys and welcome back to my channel, and I'm super pumped today, so I decided to film a character development video and we're doing Eugene today. That sounded kind of wrong. Today we're going to talk about Eugene Porter. TV show Eugene, not comic book Eugene. I don't know what the fuck that hand movement was. So much like Abraham, Eugene comes into it in season 4. Eugene comes into the show at the same time that Abraham does, so their starting storyline is kind of similar. Eugene is travelling with Abraham and Rosita. They come across Glenn and Tara on the road. Glenn is all unconscious, so they have to pull in and they take Tara and Glenn on board. Glenn wakes up, has a little panic attack, freaks out. He wants to search for Maggie. Abraham disagrees with him. They get into a kerfuffle on the road. A herd of walkers are coming by, or a few walkers are coming by. Poor Eugene is like, guys, hello, people, listen. But nobody's listening to him, so Eugene takes it upon himself to try and shoot the walkers. Accidentally ends up shooting their fucking vehicle. So then they have to go the rest of the way on foot. So this gives us background into Eugene. Eugene is pretty incapable of doing the basic necessities that you need to be able to do to survive in this world. He can't even use a gun, for example. And it's during the scene that we find out that Eugene has the cure for the zombie apocalypse. Abraham tells Glenn that Eugene has a cure. They're trying to get him to Washington to share his knowledge with other people so they can help get the cure out to everyone. Then we have the scene where they're near the railway tracks or the train tracks, and a walker falls down out of fucking nowhere. Eugene has to be shoved aside to avoid being bitten by the walker, and Abraham and Glenn come to the conclusion that Eugene should be wearing the right gear because Eugene is the brains, he has the cure, he needs to be protected. If he dies, it would really fucking suck. So they put the right gear on Eugene to keep him safe. So straight away we get the kind of impression that Eugene he's almost like a baby or an infant in the way that he needs to be protected, he needs to be minded, he needs to have constant surveillance on him in case he just stumbles into fucking something and ends up dying. But he's also an incredibly smart man. So then we get to the tunnel. Glenn and Tara go in, Abraham, Rosita and Eugene go around. Then when the three of them are off by themselves, we have Eugene kind of saying that he's worried about Glenn and Tara, that maybe leaving them go themselves wasn't the best idea. But he is pretty much told that you're the priority, you're the one that we need to keep safe and get to Washington. So then Abraham goes for a little nippity-nappity nap, and Rosita is driving and Eugene gives her directions, but the directions that Eugene gives her brings them all the way around in a circle, so they're sitting on the railway tracks in front of the tunnel that Glenn and Tara should come out of. So this is Eugene kind of fighting for what he wants. This is Eugene like, no, like we're not going to leave them on their own, we have to come back for them or wait for them. This is where they run into Maggie and they end up bringing her and her crew into the tunnel so that she can reconnect with Glenn. And shortly after this then the group are all led to Terminus and we see poor Eugene inside the boxcar or the train car. Later on then, when a few of the lads are taken out of the train car to be brought in to have their throats slit by the lovely inhabitants of Terminus, we see Eugene trying to put together an explosive or some sort of object that could open the train car's door in case nobody comes back for them. So again, that's Eugene showing off his brains, showing off that he's smart and that he is capable, just in a different way. Then we have Sasha demanding to know an explanation, which is understandable. I mean, they're all in this boxcar together with this guy that's claiming that he has a cure. Abraham and Rosita tried to get them to kind of lay off Eugene and leave him alone, but Eugene then comes out and says that he's part of this group and that he might know a way to reverse the outbreak. So when we see them get outside the boxcar, we see that Eugene doesn't really take on any walkers. And in fact, a walker comes towards him and he kind of ducks out of the way or tries to like avoid it, like ugh. And Sasha ends up killing it for him. Then we have the scene where they're in Father Gabriel's church. They've met Father Gabriel, he was up on that rock like we all know. He's in Father Gabriel's church and Abraham says that he wants to plough on with the mission. Then we have this scene between himself and Maggie when they're inside the bus on the way to Washington. They've just left the church and Maggie is kind of asking him how long would it take. If the cure is possible, how long would it take for it to undo what's been done? And Eugene smartly tells her that there's a few different things you need to take into consideration, that it's not just as simple as give him a cure and they're fine. We have a little talk about his mullet. And then the bus flips over. They get into an accident and the bus flips over. Then we see Tara defending Eugene to keep him alive from the walkers who are trying to get into the bus. And Tara hands Eugene a knife and she kind of tells him to braven up or to be brave and to try and fucking fend for himself. Now we think that Eugene's going to chicken out and that he's going to be useless, but he actually ends up saving Tara's life. A walker goes for Tara and Eugene stabs it. Then we have the scene where he watches Abraham and Rosita have alone time together. He's just lurking behind the bookcase, which apparently he does often. And then he admits to Tara that he was the one that sabotaged the bus, that he fucked up the bus on purpose so they couldn't continue on their journey. We had the scene where he uses the fire hose to save Abraham and Co. And then when they come to the kind of roadblock where there's a load of walkers up in front and Abraham wants to push through, he kind of drags Eugene along a little bit and Eugene's trying to protest and then everyone starts fighting, everyone starts arguing and Eugene takes this as his cue to tell everyone, I'm not a scientist. I think the situation just got too heavy for Eugene. He couldn't deal with it. He couldn't deal with the fact that they were going to risk their lives properly by going through this herd. He couldn't take the chance that they'd all survive through it, so he decided, fuck this, it's not worth it, I'm not a scientist. He admits that although he is a very smart man, he doesn't have the cure. That this was like a survival tactic for him, that he knew that people would keep him safe and bring him along if he had something to offer. And since he didn't have wicked combat skills, he knew the only way he could do that would be by lying. Rosita then points out the fact to him that people have died trying to get him to where he is. I was like, Rosita, he knows that, come on. Stop trying to guilt trip him. I'm getting second-hand awkwardness and embarrassment just for the man. Then Abraham knocks Eugene the fuck out, and Eugene lies unconscious on the floor. Maggie shields him with, I think it was a ladder and a blanket so the creator doesn't get sunstroke. Then we hit a scene where for a brief moment I thought he was a walker because he woke up and he was groaning underneath the fucking blanket. I was like, Eugene, you doing okay? You cracked your fucking skull and now you're moaning. Turns out he's fine. He wakes up and he is very much still a human. And then they all go back to Father Gabriel's church. Then we have that scene where I think it showed real development for Eugene when they're on the road. It's before they come to Alexandria and they see all the bottled water on the road in front of them, and Eugene doesn't listen to the words of warning. Everyone's saying it could be poisoned. We don't know who left this here. We don't know if they're friends or if they want to kill us. Eugene just takes up a bottle and is prepared to drink it to kind of take one for the team. In Eugene's head, he needs to try and reconcile. He needs to try and fix what he has done and how he lied to everybody. But Abraham doesn't allow him to drink it. He slaps the water out of his hand. And I think there's a moment between Abraham and Eugene where the old Abraham and Eugene kind of shone through, where Eugene doing something reckless and Abraham is there just to save him in the nick of time, even though there was no reason for it now. There's no reason for Abraham to keep Eugene alive, but he did it out of, I think out of habit, but also out of the fact that he was still his friend, that he still cared for him as a human. Even though Eugene lied to Abraham, Abraham still wasn't willing to just let him die. When they get into Alexandria, Deanna gives Eugene the job of working on the solar panels for Alexandria. Because he's a smart man, he's got a mathematical mind or a clever brain. She knows that he'd be able to try and get the solar panels up and running and keep them running smoothly. The biggest scene I think for Eugene is when he goes out on the run with Glenn, Tara, Nicholas and Aiden. And Noah. God help us, poor Noah didn't make it out of that one alive. We have the bit where Aiden gets impaled on something. Tara gets knocked unconscious. And then Walker's trying to attack Eugene and Tara. Eugene tries to defend Tara, but like there's walkers coming at them from both sides. And he's ended up saved by Noah there. They then bring Tara into an office to try and check her head to make sure she's okay, that the damage wasn't too serious and she's not going to die straight away in turn. Then they find out that Aiden, although impaled and looking kind of dead, is still alive, and Glenn suggests going back for him, so Eugene says that he'll stay in the office with Tara. Now at this stage I think it was partly because he was afraid to go out into the room that was full of walkers, but I also think it was out of a duty to Tara. He had kind of struck up a friendship with Tara over the last few episodes, and I think he felt a sense of protection over her because she had always been really badass. She'd always been really hands-on. That if there was a walker, she'd just fucking deal with it. She wouldn't rely on anybody else to deal with it for her. She had saved Eugene's life. Eugene had saved her life that time on the road where he killed the walker. So I think for Eugene, seeing such a strong woman, such a strong, capable woman, helpless and unconscious and not able to look after herself, I think it struck something in Eugene and he was like, alright, I have to step up now and I have to mind her because she would do it for me. And then, like a true action hero, badass, Eugene slings her over his shoulder, finds way out of the building, killing walkers in the process, gets into a van, has music blaring and draws the walkers away. Then he's out front in the car waiting for the other people to come out, get into the car so they can leave the place. And then Nicholas approaches him and tells him that if he doesn't leave now that they'll leave him behind, or he kind of threatened him in a way. And then Eugene starts showing real love and dedication for the group that have come to be like a family to him, and he refuses to leave. He tells Nicholas, no, I'm not leaving them here. But he's not able to stop Nicholas. Nicholas ends up throwing Eugene out of the van, and you think he's going to get away in the car, but then Glenn comes out of nowhere and beats the shit out of him. I was like, thank God, Glenn, thank God. Then when they get back to Alexandria, Eugene stays with Tara as she's unconscious. He sleeps beside her bed to look after her and to wait for her to wake up, which I thought was so incredibly sweet because he knew that there was nothing romantic. He knew that nothing romantic could come of that it wasn't like, if I'm her friend for long enough, maybe she'll date me. It wasn't like that with Eugene and Tara. He loved her and respected her as a friend or as a sister. So to see him that protective over her and to watch over her, I thought it was really lovely for his character. Then Abraham comes in and he says he's going to leave because he notes a sleeping Eugene sitting beside Tara. And Rosita very subtly knocks over a bunch of noisy shit, and when Abraham next looks over at the bed, Eugene is just sitting there looking at him like, morning. Then the two fellas get into a conversation and Eugene kind of says what I've just mentioned, that Tara had saved his life a lot of times and she'd stood by him and that it had been his turn to help her out and to save her life. Then we have that moment, that very tense moment where Eugene apologises for lying to Abraham. And there's a slight moment where you think, how is Abraham gonna react to this? Because it is quite a touchy subject for Abraham, and the two men had just kind of been talking very, very little throughout the scene. And for Eugene to bring up the cause of their massive falling out and their massive argument, there was part of me that was wondering, should Eugene have brought that up? How is Abraham going to react? But Abraham then apologises to Eugene, and he apologises for nearly killing him. And the two lads are just like, well, whew, apologies out of the way, we're back friends again. Then we have the scene where Eugene meets Heath. Heath comes to the door, and Eugene is like, I'm not letting you in, I don't know you, who are you? And we see Eugene taking on that kind of protector role in his own little right, that some stranger rolled up to the gate, and Eugene was like, I don't think so, buddy. But then Heath explains, I fucking live here, let me in the gate. Eugene then tells him that he's only covering someone else's shift and he's not responsible for who gets let in and out. But then he does eventually let Heath in because he does live there, and he gives him a comment about his hair, something about respecting the hair game or something about the hair game or something. Because we all know Eugene is a bitchin' mullet. Then we have the scene where he's in the pantry, he's trying to gather up some food, and he overhears a conversation that he shouldn't have heard. It's one fella trying to convince Spencer and a few other people that they should try and overthrow Rick's group, they should try and fight back or try and get them kicked out or some shit. Because they believe that Rick could be dangerous, and Rick's group are not the proper people that there should be in Alexandria. Eugene kind of stands hidden from sight, kind of like listening in the shadows, like, the fuck you saying about my people? But then Eugene has to go and drop something on the fucking ground to make a big noise, and suddenly everyone is on him like flies on something that flies like. And then Carter points his gun at Eugene, and for a split second I thought, well, Eugene, this is it, this is where you meet your maker. But Rick, Michonne and Morgan break in at the last minute, and they kind of diffuse the whole situation. They disarm your man and they kind of get Eugene up off the ground. Now, I had kind of wondered about the scene, what would have happened if they hadn't have burst in at that moment. Would Carter have shot Eugene? Would that have been the end of Eugene? And if he had shot him, what were they going to do with his body? Like, if somebody would have noticed that Eugene was fucking missing after a few hours. So what was Carter's plan for this scene? That always interested me, and in The Walking Dead that always kind of sticks in my head, like scenes like that where something nearly happens but doesn't. I always think, well, what happens if it had happened? What were they thinking? Then we have the scene where Eugene and Tara go off into the infirmary. I think Tara has like a headache or something, she's trying to get painkillers, but they meet Denise. Denise is a new doctor. Eugene seems kind of skeptical of her at first. I think Eugene just has a small bit of trouble, or a small bit of a problem with trusting somebody with the lives of the members of his group. Then we see Eugene and Tara bring in someone that got hurt during the wolf attack, and Eugene and Tara stay with Denise. Denise seems to be panicking a little bit. She feels like she's not ready for this, she's not able for this yet, she doesn't feel like a real doctor. But Eugene has a really beautiful moment with Denise where he tells her, you don't want to be a coward, you can do this. And I think this was Eugene speaking from past experience, that he saw somebody that was seemingly weak, that was seemingly breaking down a little bit, and they just needed a pep talk. That's all they needed. Maybe if somebody had given Eugene that in the beginning, he mightn't have had to lie so much. He wouldn't have had to lie to make friends and to meet people that would mind him. But, you know, their patient still dies. Denise can't do it because I think your one was just too far gone at that stage. Then we see Eugene when he's at Rosita's lesson, when she's giving them all a how to be a fucking ninja badass warrior lesson on the grass or something. They're all out and they all have knives, they have weapons, and Rosita's teaching them how to use it. She's teaching them how to use a weapon without it getting stuck in a walker's head, or what to do if it does get stuck in a walker's head. But Eugene is more focusing on the walkers outside. I think he's aware of the fact that he's in a very safe zone, he's with his friends, he's safe, but the threat is still there. He can still hear the walkers outside. Rosita picks up on this fact that he's pure distracted and spaced out, and he admits that he's terrified of dying, he's afraid of death. Rosita then makes a very good point where she's saying, well, death isn't your problem. You dying is not that's scary. It's when your friends die that's scarier. It's when you have to watch your friends and family and people that you love die and you have to leave them behind. So I think Rosita's point of this lesson isn't how to protect yourself, but it's more how to protect the people around you, which is something that Rosita had been doing for a long time with Eugene. She had been protecting him since they first met him. So I think with Eugene, I think she's trying to tell him it's hard keeping people alive, it's hard watching people you love die. You need to learn this shit because someday you're going to need to use it. Tara and Rosita end up saving Eugene when a walker herd attacks, and they end up hiding out in a garage or a garage. Eugene then goes ninja, uses lock-picking techniques to get out of the garage and into the house. Then they stumble across that wolf with the big W on his head. He's holding Denise captive and he has Morgan and Carl knocked out on the ground. He tells them to put down their weapons, which of course they have to do, and your man leaves. He goes out the door with Denise out into the fucking unknown, and they have to just stand there and watch it because they can't do anything about it. Then when all this crazy shit is going on in the fucking Alexandria, Eugene tells Rosita, we're going to have to take a stand, we're going to have to do something about this, and Rosita says, yeah, we will, not you. So Rosita is still in the mindset that Eugene is incapable of doing anything, that Eugene has to be babied, that Eugene isn't to be relied on. But when they all go out onto the streets to fight the walkers, Eugene follows them. And when he's told you don't have to, like, you can go back in the house, he says, no one gets to clock out today. So Eugene is saying this is a group effort, I'm part of this fucking group, I want to help ye. Then goes on to add that this is a story that people are going to tell. That, you know, years down the line when the zombie apocalypse is cured, or when people have learned to deal with it, or when the people have fought back and the zombies are dying out, that the Battle of Alexandria will be remembered, and he wanted to be a part of that. He didn't want to be remembered as the person that cowered in the house, or that, yet again, wasn't there for his friends. He wanted to be remembered as somebody that bravely fought beside the people that he loved. Then when Rick and Darla are going out on their supply run, Eugene approaches the car, gives them a few tips on what they should pick up so that they can be a self-sustained society. Darla and Rick don't really seem all that interested in that conversation. I loved it, they looked so unamused. Eugene was leaning in the window like, now this is what you gotta do, this is what you gotta get. And Darla and Rick were like... Another key scene for Eugene was when Abraham and Rosita broke up. Those three had been like the ultimate power couple, the three of them together. So the fact that Abraham broke up with Rosita, I think might have worried Eugene a little bit, and Eugene might be wondering what is there in store for our group now, for the three of us, what's going to happen now. But instead of offering Rosita words of comfort, Eugene pulls a total Eugene and starts talking about what the cookie he's eating is like. Rosita, very rightly so, slams the door in his face. Then we have the whole bit where Abraham and Eugene leave Alexandria. Abraham says something about Eugene's ponytail. Eugene has now taken to wearing his little mullet and a little ponytail, bitchin' little hairdo. And Abraham says something about it in passing, and Eugene says, well, I'm a survivor now, which Abraham completely just ignores. Then there's the most important scene for those two characters together. It's the scene where they're in the bullet manufacturing building, and Eugene shares his plans to make bullets with Abraham. Eugene knows that bullets aren't easy to come by, that you're not always going to be able to stumble across a new clip or something like that, so you're going to have to start making your own bullets. He tells Abraham of his plans, and it does seem like a good idea. It's showing that Eugene is helping now in his own way. He can help now in walker herds and in fighting and stuff, but his strength still lies in his planning and in his brain and in the things that he can do. Then a walker comes out with a lovely melted helmet stuck to his face, and Eugene calls dibs. Eugene tries to kill the walker but can't. I think this is like a blow to Eugene's confidence a little bit, because Eugene wanted to prove to Abraham, no, I can kill this, I can do it, but he can't, and Abraham has to step in and kill it. Then Eugene just gets really angry over, I don't even think he was angry over the fact that Abraham killed the walker. I think it was the principle behind it, that Eugene had told Abraham, I got this, I can handle it, and Abraham didn't believe him and still stepped in and babied him. So Eugene snaps and tells Abraham, your services are no longer required. In other words, I don't need you to look after me, like fuck off, I can deal with it by myself. But this scene, as harsh as this scene was, I could see a lot of similarities between this scene and the scene where Abraham broke up with Rosita. As humans, we learn a lot from the people that we know and the people that we associate ourselves with and that we're near every day. And I think Eugene learned a lot of things from Abraham. And Eugene was standing in that doorway watching Abraham and Rosita break up, or listening to Abraham and Rosita break up and how ruthless it was. And I think he just dished that shit back to Abraham. Abraham had pretty much told Rosita, I thought you were the only woman on earth, you're not. In other words, what we have, it's done, it's over, I don't need it anymore. That's exactly what Eugene told Abraham. Your services are no longer required. Like, I dismiss you kind of thing. But Abraham wasn't prepared to hear that, storms out, leaves Eugene to find his own way home, which Eugene doesn't. He ends up being captured by Dwight and the Saviors, and then there's that showdown on the train tracks. Then Eugene spots Abraham hiding in the kind of nearby distance where the Saviors can't see him. And I think this says a lot about Abraham. I don't think Abraham let Eugene go home by himself. I think Abraham stayed and watched Eugene. That Abraham gave Eugene the illusion that, hey, you're going home by yourself, do it like by yourself. But that never actually came to be, because otherwise, how would Abraham have known where they were going to be? How would he have known that Eugene was captured? So I think he watched Eugene, he kind of tailed him for a little bit, and then when he's captured, that he followed Eugene to the train tracks and all the Saviors to the train tracks, and then hid and tried to make a plan. But when Eugene spots him, he says to Dwight, kill him first, he's over there. And I thought, oh my god, you're selling out your best friend? What the fuck is going on in that mulleted head of yours? But Eugene has a plan. When Dwight's distracted, he bites him in the nether regions, and then everyone starts shooting. Shit gets really fucking quick. Denise is dead at this stage. Poor Eugene gets shot in the process, and Rosita, Daryl and Abraham carry him back to Alexandria. And then when Abraham is sitting by Eugene's, I'm just going to call it like a hospital bed, you know what I mean, back at Alexandria, Eugene tries to explain himself and he says, look, I wasn't actually trying to get you killed, I was waiting for the right time, I was waiting for the proper opportunity. But Abraham seems to fully understand this, and he seems to fully respect what Eugene had done and the decision that Eugene had made. In that very small window of time, Eugene had saved all their lives because he offered that brief moment of distraction that gave them the chaos and the destruction and all that shit that they needed in order to get away. So I think Abraham fully forgives him for that, and I don't think Abraham looked on it as Eugene tried to sell him out at all. I think Abraham understands what Eugene had been trying to do. And we have the final scene with Eugene where he decides to take the RV and drive it away and try and provide a distraction while the group try and escape to the forest. Eugene knew fully fucking well that anything could go wrong with this plan, that he mightn't survive, and he still took that chance. He hands over his plans for the bullets to Rick. I think that scene just really fucking got to me, because the bullets were the only real thing that Eugene had to offer the group at the moment. That his brain and his thoughts and his plans, that was what he had to offer. And the fact that he was handing them over to Rick was Eugene saying, I know there's a big possibility that I mightn't survive this, so here, I'm still going to try and help you the best that I can. Take the plans and run with them. And then we have that gorgeous scene between Abraham and Eugene where they hug each other, and it's so emotional. And this is where Abraham fully accepts the fact that Eugene is a survivor and that he is capable of not only minding himself but trying to look after the rest of the group. And like I've said, I think it was in my Abraham video, this moment was it felt to me like a mother-child moment. You know, there's a moment in every mother's life where they have to let their kid go off into the world, get a job or go to college or go off and become a grown-up by themselves. I think this was Abraham's moment with Eugene. Abraham had always tried to dismiss the fact and deny the fact that Eugene was in fact a grown-up, had a brain and could handle certain things by himself. But in this moment, Abraham fully accepted. He was like, there is no other way. There is no other option. This is a good plan, Eugene, and it could work, and I trust you to do it. And they hug each other, and Eugene gets into the RV by himself, and it's the first time Eugene has ever gone on any kind of a mission or a run or done anything completely alone. And I think that must have been so terrifying for Eugene to know that Abraham or Rosita or someone like that, they're not going to swoop in to save him. That this is entirely in his hands. He has to do it alone. So then after that, we all know it doesn't work out for him because he ends up being brought into Negan's lineup by Dwight. Poor Eugene looks really beaten up and really, his face looks swollen and bloody. Maybe that was because he bit Dwight in the ding-a-ling and Dwight wanted to get back or get some sort of revenge on Eugene, so he beat the fuck out of him. But the last we see, Eugene is in Negan's lineup with the other members of his group. I think Eugene has come of such a big distance since we first saw him. The character development has been astounding with Eugene. He went from being this kind of childish, reckless, you know, unreliable person that had to be minded, that had to be protected, that had to be shielded from the whole world. He went from being that person that lied and tricked everyone into thinking that he could make things better just because he needed somebody to look after him and he knew he couldn't survive alone. He went from being that man to the man that would willingly drive off into the fucking unknown by himself, hoping to God that he could try and make a difference, that he could offer the group even a few minutes head start, that they could try and escape. And Eugene, I think Eugene, since the whole Live fiasco, has always tried to prove himself to Abraham and prove himself to the group that I'm not a piece of shit, I can help if you let me. And I think that's what driving the RV was as well. I think that's what that moment meant to Eugene, that finally he could try and prove that he could do some good. Now, his relationship with Abraham was probably the most important. I've already gone through it in the Abraham character development, which I'll link below if you want to watch that. I've mentioned it a few times throughout this that it started off a relationship out of necessity. Eugene had to be kept safe by Abraham because Abraham had to get him to Washington. It went from being that sort of relationship to the relationship where both men could respect and trust each other and they cared and loved for each other deeply. And we saw that in the last scene where they hugged each other. We have his relationship with Rosita, because obviously the three of them, Abraham, Eugene and Rosita, were kind of Abraham's army. I think his relationship with Rosita is kind of less straightforward than his relationship with Abraham, because Rosita had the mindset as Abraham, we gotta keep him safe, whatever. But she was constantly trying to make him see, you have to help, you have to chip in. Like when she was teaching him how to use the machete out on the lawn, she was trying to explain to him, death isn't scary, it's losing people that you love that's scary. And she kind of always looked down on him, and she'd written him off as being a coward and being incapable of helping or incapable of giving anything positive or bettering the group. But then we see that Rosita is actually the one that tried to help reconcile Abraham and Eugene's relationship. She's the one that knocked all those pots off the... my finger, ow. She's the one that knocked all the pots off of the counter to try and wake Eugene up so the two fellas could have a talk. So she saw how important their relationship with each other was, and she tried to help fix it. I think the most important relationship with Eugene is the one that he had with Tara, or the one that he has with Tara. She, again, had tried to make him into a braver person. We have that scene in the school bus where she gives him the knife and she's like, you need to get brave. No bullshit with Tara. She's like, I'm not gonna fucking baby you, you need to come out and help. He saves her life there. And then we see Tara looking out for him and minding him throughout Eugene's time on the show. But then that scene where she was knocked unconscious and he went out of his way to keep her safe, and he is the reason that she lived, because he carried her out to the car, he kept her safe, and he sat by her bed, you know, waiting for her to wake up. I think he's had an important relationship on everyone. Eugene is that kind of character where he's kind of like Abraham. He pops out with the weirdest of things and he says the weirdest of things every now and again, but he's an important character in the show. He's still the kind of character that is babied to an extent, but he's kind of looked on as like the brother of the group. Like everyone will talk to him and chat to him, even just briefly. Like with Rick, he doesn't have a super close relationship, but Rick respects him as a human being, same as Eugene respects Rick as the leader. So I think Eugene has come such a long way, and I think that, you know, when a character is set up like that, when a character has a big moment of development, that it usually means that something could happen. And now that Eugene's in Negan's lineup, I think Eugene is now in my top 3 of people that could be Lucille. And I've chopped and changed my mind so much, but in my top 3, in no particular order, is Glenn, Abraham and Eugene. Eugene has just had such an interesting character arc, and like, he hasn't been a main character, like he hasn't been in your face for all the episodes, but he's that character that has been in the show for quite some time, that's kind of laced into every episode, even if it's subtly, that we've grown used to him, that we've grown used to his one-liners like Abraham. And I've grown to love Eugene lately, and I've loved watching a character that was so weak, that was so honestly weak, that would go, look, I can't do that, I'm not going out there. Watch a character like that grow into a character that's like, I'm going to come with you, I'm going to help you, or I'm going to go risk my life in this RV to try and, on my own, by myself, so if I'm caught, I'm pretty much fucked. But I'm going to try and draw these people away so you guys have a chance. Man, I really love Eugene, and I don't even know, I'm not ready for this fucking premiere, as I've said a bazillion times. But I hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope it refreshed some things about Eugene's character in your mind that you might have forgotten about, and I will talk to you all soon.